we're going to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So here we have a photo of the yard. And we have taken tours to visit John and Angie in their woodworking shop. And now we're going to have that opportunity today. So without further ado, I would like to welcome John Randall to the program. Hi, John.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, thank you. Welcome.
So thanks for being with us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into woodworking and how you ended up starting Bien Hecho?
Sure, yes. I came to the Brooklyn Navy Yard in 2006 and started Bien Hecho at that point. I had been very interested in furniture making, and so I worked for some people and interned for some people leading up to that time. And in that moment in 2006, I sort of took the plunge, subletted a very small space downstairs in this building 3 in the Navy Yard. And yeah, it just kind of grew from there. And now, we are now in a space of about 4,000 square feet. And we also have an annex down the hall. And we've been up in this space for about 12 years now.
Wow. And our connection, we obviously met through the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And I know you've worked on a lot of projects that people can actually see when they go to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Could you share a little bit about some of those projects?
Sure. So one of our first projects for the Navy Yard was an exciting one that I give lots of credit to Andrew Kimball for really helping us do some of the work on the museum, which is right next door to us, building 92. And there's some things in the museum you can see, but one of the most fun things we did were the front doors. And those were a historical reproduction. They were designed in the 1850s, I believe. And they're solid oak doors, really big, heavy. We had to do some custom moldings. It was really, really a cool project. And then the second kind of big thing we did for the Navy Yard was in building 77. We did communal tables for them that were solid walnut, and they had a live edge on them. They're book matched pieces of walnut. We have one we can show you a little later, one more set that was left over from that we're working on a table for. But that was, unfortunately, those are, in storage right now because they were communal tables for all the restaurants that now occupy building 77. And then one of the more fun things we did was a lot of work for the Wegmans that went in. And being a Rochester native, I really enjoyed doing that. And that incorporated a lot of wood from the actual site where the Wegmans now sits.
Yeah, and we actually have some photos here, or a map that's from the Brooklyn Navy Yard that we shared with you when you were working on that project, of a tree map from 1910 of that site, which might be fun for us to share with folks who are watching. So I'm going to pull this up here so people can have a look. So it's here at this site here is where the Wegmans, the former Admiral's Row site, where there were buildings that dated back to the 19th century. This was remained in federal hands all the way up just until sort of a couple of decades ago. But we can see on this map some trees from the 1910s. So do you think some of the trees were you able to kind of identify some of the trees that connected to this map to maybe some of the ones that you ended up using in that project?
Yeah, for sure. So we ended up, the trees that we milled were some sycamore. They're definitely on that map. There's some elm, there's some oak. There's 2 types of elm actually. And there was a little bit of ash as well. So that was really fun to mill. And then from that same site, there was an old building, the timber shed, where we got a lot of reclaimed timbers as well. And we used both of those things in the Wegmans project. they were kind enough to want, almost everything made out of that wood that they commissioned from us. So there's wall paneling, little stools, tables, little benches, lots of stuff. So.
And this would be in the dining area in Wegmans, if people were to go there in normal times.
Exactly, that's right. That's another one of those things that we'll have to wait to see. But it's there, and it'll be brand new because it wasn't open very long before this this thing hit. So yeah, there's some cool stuff to see over there.
And I mean, what I think is so interesting about your work is it's almost as if every project has its own story, its own connection, where in many cases, you can share where the lumber came from, where the wood came from in New York City, because you're reclaiming so many materials. Can you tell us about some of the places around New York City, aside from the Admiral's Row site, where you've been able to source some of your wood?
Sure, yeah. So we've gotten a lot of wood from different demolitions all over the city. And so I've sort of fallen in with a bunch of big carting companies and companies that do big demolitions. So they kind of ring me up when they get something good. And there's some stuff, some really good material that we've processed lately has been from Bed-Stuy, a big demolition there. Last year and the year before, we did some work for a building that now is an annex for New Lab, which is a Navy Yard tenant on 77 Washington, not too far from here. They pulled out some beautiful southern yellow pine beams, and we made them a big conference table and a bench to put right back in the same site. And then we have our iconic water tower cooler, functional water dispensing water tower. That this one was a water tower on our building here in the Navy Yard. This came from a cedar water tank that was decommissioned upstairs. I think it sprung a pretty nasty leak, and so they got Rosenweck, or maybe Issik Brothers, to come and replace it. And so we got a lot of that wood. And the top is turned by our neighbor here. He's a master turner on the lathe. And this wood is from the Admiral's Row site. So it sort of kept it local to this.
And aren't there other water towers? Isn't there a water tower as well is it the One Hotel in Dumbo?
Yes, there's two in the One Brooklyn Hotel in Dumbo. There's two in the Whitby Hotel in Times Square. And then there's two in London, in a hotel in London. And then there's a couple that are owned by the private homeowners. We do editions of 10, and we have 2 left of the first edition of 10. And they are functional. They don't, unfortunately, we haven't figured out how to cool the water, but it takes a 5-gallon bottle, 3-gallon bottle, excuse me, like a Poland Spring bottle, and it has a float, and it has a functional dispenser right here. So, yeah.
You mentioned another business that you collaborate with, and I know that that's something that does happen at the Brooklyn Navy Yard and with your business, that at certain points in time, you might have machinery or tools that another business might use, and vice versa, that there's sort of a spirit of collaboration that happens. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, one good example is that we do work in a lot of metals, so-called red metals, so brass, bronze, copper, and then also just steel and stainless steel and aluminum. But although I've acquired a welder recently, I'm not very good at it, and so all the really nice metal work that we need to do for our projects, we generally outsource. So our neighbor is a really good welder. He worked for Farah for a long time. If we get big commissions, we go right to Farah. Is a Navy Yard tenant. They do really big architectural steel and aluminum projects. And then, yeah, one example is this machine, this big green machine over here. not a lot of people have those in the Navy Yard. They're edge banders. It's an edge bander. So it applies a veneer to the edge of the panel. You can kind of see these panels here. It applies that. And it's a semi-automated machine. So it applies the glue, applies the tape, trims the tape, cuts it, buffs it, spits it out the end. So, you know, we have a lot of people coming by and asking to do that to service for them. And, you know, it oftentimes ends up with like a little barter. They may have a really big sander that we want to use. I don't have a great big sander. We have a great big bandsaw that we can do a lot of really large cutting with that a lot of people don't have. So there is very much a collaborative spirit, as you said here. A lot of people, you know, sort of scratching one another's backs. And even just kind of, if we get busy, I can go to my neighbors here. Both these walls, on either side of these walls are woodworkers. So there's a lot of, sometimes they'll pitch us work when they get swamped, and we'll do the same. So it's a good little community over here for sure.
We'd love to pull up some pictures of some of the projects, some you've discussed and others you haven't, so that people can take a closer look, and maybe we can walk through that. And then after that, you know, we'd love to hear about some of the projects that you're working on now that you're excited about. So I'm just going to pull up my screen here and share some photos so we can take a closer look. So if you can take a look at the camera and kind of verbally walk us through what we're seeing here.
Sure, certainly. So that's one Hotels Brooklyn or One Brooklyn Hotel. I keep forgetting. That's in Dumbo, right on the water. It's a beautiful hotel. That is the sort of main reception conference table kind of thing that we did for them, and that's all reclaimed wood. And that particular project was nice because they used a lot of local people for all the different furnishings and things like that. So.
And we have here a photo that sort of puts the door that you worked on at the Marine Commandant's house, which some of our viewers may be familiar with this building in that they visited the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and this is the entry point and has been for years for our tours. But this was a restoration of this 1857 building, and I just love that you played an important part in that. So we're seeing the door here, and I know that you use some of the historical renderings from Thomas Ustick Walter, who is a really important architect of the 19th century.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The archivist at the time managed to dig up that particular drawing that you're talking about, and we drew directly off of that. We made our drawings and directly off that, and that was really fun because it literally looked sort of coffee stained, and it was sort of, you know, beat up around the edges. It was clearly a very old document, and yeah, that's a historic reproduction, and that was just a great project because those are really solid, thick doors, and that's all FSC wood, red oak, because I think they ended up getting you probably know, but FSC gold or platinum certification for that building, and so that was an important aspect as well.
Yeah, and while we're looking through these photos, if it's possible for you to flip the camera so we can see you.
Oh, sure. We didn't know we were still.
There we go. Okay, awesome.
Sure.
And for those that may not be familiar, FSC is the Forest Stewardship Council. So this is a special certification for sustainably sourced wood. So let's take a look. This next one, where are you at in this photograph where you're sort of using this huge saw on this gigantic tree?
Yes, that is in the Naval Hospital campus. So the developer over at the Admiral Row site, when I walked the site with a representative of the developer, I pointed out which trees that were worth saving. And so they ended up moving them over to the Naval Hospital campus because it's really kind of open over there, and there's up until just a little while ago, there wasn't much going on there. And so we could really stretch out and move these giant logs around. And then, yeah, we did a lot of milling over there. We got what's called a wood miser, which is a bandsaw mill that's portable over there to do kind of the really quick and easy milling of some of the smaller stuff on 2 separate occasions. And then we milled off and on for a better part of a year with this it's a double-ended chainsaw bar mill. Sometimes they're called Alaska mill. This one's made by a different company, but yeah, it was really fun. It's brutal. It's a lot on the senses, a lot of noise, a lot of dust. The air is very, combustion engine-y, and so it's fatiguing, but it's really fun. And that particular log is a sycamore, a really big sycamore tree that we were able to get some really pretty slabs out of that I still have. We didn't need to use any of that for Wegmans, so that's awaiting commission.
Yeah, I love hearing these stories about where all the wood is coming from. I know you even had a project where you used reclaimed wood from the Coney Island boardwalk as well.
That's right. Yeah, that was a classic dumpster dive. I had a friend who was part of Occupy Sandy out there. The city let them set up in a building right on the boardwalk, and they were doing relief efforts out there. And when they started to rebuild, he gave me a ring and said, "You should see all this wood that they're throwing out." So I made a couple trips with a truck and just pulled out some really good stuff. This picture you're looking at now, it is the sycamore. So sycamore, when it's quarter sawn, has this really nice, pretty, almost cheetah print kind of grain to it. And it's really fun to work with.
Yeah, and you can really see that there in this close-up in the photo. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So I've seen this one in your shop before, but if you could share a little bit more about this desk.
Yeah, there's the Coney Island boardwalk wood right there in the legs. And then there's some brass capped little feet. And then that is reclaimed pine on the top and the sides. And we call it the public school desk. It's sort of an homage to my public school upbringing. You know, the old schoolhouse desks always had that little stationary shelf drawer underneath. So it has curved sides, and the legs go all the way through to kind of give it a little detail there. And yeah, that's one of the first designs of our own I did. You know, we do a lot of custom millwork, work with architects, designers. They send us their designs. And so, you know, little by little, I've been making, you know, my designs and our own sort of in-house designed furniture. And that's one of the first, and I do enjoy that one. That's a fun one.
Yeah, it's very sleek looking, but it also has this classic feel to it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so this is actually a photo I took about a month ago where there was a socially distanced concert outside of Building 77. So for people who are less familiar with the Brooklyn Navy Yard, there are some buildings that are on the perimeter that are accessible to the general public. And then the inside of the yard is where you have all these different manufacturers doing their work. And so it's more of a secure facility in order to support folks like you that need to load and unload and that sort of thing. But at Building 77, people can go there. It's just about a block away from Building 92, the visitor center, and step inside and see Russ and Daughters and the food manufacturing hub. And hopefully in the not so distant future, we'll also see the tables back and we can see them here.
Oh yeah, there we are.
Yep. So John, if people are interested in commissioning you for a project or would like to learn more about how they can have you make a table or a piece of furniture, or even if they're affiliated with an organization, company, or agency, how can they work with you?
The easiest way is just to drop me a line with as much of an idea as you know, as many details as possible, as far as kind of what you're looking to commission, you know, what type of wood, if you know that, but you don't have to. A lot of times people do a little sketch. You know, you don't have to be Rembrandt. You can just do any little thing. And yeah, just drop us a line at info@bienhechoacademy.com. And yeah, that's kind of the easiest way. And then it starts the conversation. So a lot of times designs, you have to flesh them out and kind of, you know, discuss options and all sorts of things. So
Are there projects right now that you're excited about that you're working on?
let me see if I can flip this here.
Sure.
Bloop. All right, so you can see, I'll go over there, but you can see there's a great big kitchen that we're working on here. So this is for a brownstone in the historic part of Bed-Stuy, a really long wall of cabinetry. So you have some doors above oven and some, you know, drawers. Really a very drawer-heavy kitchen. They wanted like tons of storage, so it's really a pretty monstrous kitchen. And then the built-in fridge goes there with the custom panels. So that's one. We actually have a meeting with this architect this evening, and then one of my little pet projects is the two leftover slabs from the Building 77 tables that are. I'm doing something a little more artistic than what you did for the Navy Yard, but kind of filling in the middle, sort of doing a pixelation and contrasting sort of digitization with a very natural form. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll just be kind of for sale on the forthcoming e-commerce, hopefully. And yeah, this is kind of it for current projects right now. We do have a couple going on, but this is the one that's in the stage of fabrication.
John, I'm curious, you know, I've heard that a lot of people, well, because everyone is stuck at home right now, that people are getting more into, hobbyists are getting more into learning about furniture making and woodworking. Do you have any tips for people that are starting to tinker? Any kind of like basic introductory tips that you might want to share with any woodworkers we have who are watching?
That's a good question. I mean, I could show you just a little thing that's kind of fun to play around with. I think one thing that a lot of people inquire about, and Angie knows better than I do, but basically we get people saying, hey, I have this table that I love, but I want to refinish it. And so the one thing about that, if you're doing that at home, is you don't want to buy any nasty chemicals to do that. There is a company that makes a stripper that is a green product. It's actually pretty much odorless. And it's a New York City-based company. I forget what it's called, but it's a great product. You'll know it when you see it because it says it's green and non-caustic. But refinishing furniture is a great thing to do at home because there's been so many advances in the technology of finishing and stuff. So people, kind of associate finishing with the odor. But nowadays, with a lot of water-based finishes, that's a fun thing to do at home. Or just kind of repaint something, learn about distressed finishes and kind of refinish something. But I'll show you a couple little aspects, and then maybe we'll, yeah.
Thank you so much. This is great. This is great.
So we are in the academy. We're actually in the academy space right now, but we are going to, in the future, when we feel comfortable doing so, we will be offering a hand tools class. And so working with hand tools, you can definitely do at home. And that's kind of one of the points of the class, is to teach people how they can make small things. They could do little models. They could do bigger projects too, but that they could do at home, something they could do at home. And, you know, so in that class, we'll get a Japanese style saw and combination square. And there's some other tools, but we won't go over those today. But I do want to show you, when it comes to making a frame, there's usually always what's called a miter cut. And a miter cut traditionally is on the 45. It can be anything at an angle, but a 45 like that is what is called a miter cut. So I use my combination square there to make the line. And then this is something, you know, you could even do at your kitchen table at home, is you sort of cut the miter with just a handsaw. Like so. And then as you can see, here's your corner. So what we do, believe it or not, this is a trick of the trade. Take a little tape on one side, like so. Tape the other side. Put a little dab of glue in there. And you have your frame and your corner of your frame. So if you do that 4 times, voila, you have a small frame. And then when it comes to sanding, there's one little trick about sanding, and if you remember this, you'll never have a problem sanding. The various sandpapers start with low numbers being very coarse, and then higher numbers being finer sandpaper. So when we go through what's called our sanding schedule, we'll start with a coarse grit. Right now, if it's 100, that's pretty coarse. And you always want to go with the grain, like so. You never want to go against the grain. You can see the grain a little bit better in our table, our workbench. You know, with the grain, you never want to go this way, because you'll end up leaving really deep scratches that are harder to get out. So after you glue up your miter corners in your little picture frame, you would just pass over it a few times with 100 grit, and then maybe jump to 150, then to 220, and then, you know, apply your brush on finish or stain or whatever.
Watching you do this reminds me of my grandmother, who actually turns 101 next week, because I think she's made it to that age because she spent for years, she's restored antique furniture. I'm just seeing you do this, like, sort of help connect me to her a little bit. It's nice. But this is, you know, so helpful and useful for people that maybe are new to this. And one of the great things that you guys have done is, on one hand, you're making this furniture, but you also now have launched the Bien Hecho Academy and brought students into the workshop to teach them these skills, teach them the fundamental skills, and then to sort of grow from there. And I know that Angie is also here to share a little bit about that with us today. If we have any questions for John from our audience, please feel free to ask those at this time. Otherwise, we're going to learn a little bit about the Academy next from Angie. But John, we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for taking us through the shop and sharing these tips with us today. I think they're helpful. They're helpful to anyone that maybe new, especially to woodworking. And so with that, is there anyone that has any questions? I think not. So I think we're good. John, is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we discuss the Academy with Angie?
Nope, that's pretty much it. Thank you for virtually coming.
We wish we could see you in person, as we've done through the years, but we were so pleased to feature the business, especially during Climate Week. Your business has you know, works with these reclaimed materials, and it seemed like an appropriate fit for this week. So thanks so much for sharing these backstories. Oh, I should say one thing. one of my relatives, Pete, is on the program, and he's a woodworker, and he said it was awesome. And so he was really pleased to see your shop. And so I just wanted to share that. He said you've done some awesome work.
All right. Thanks, Pete.
All right, thanks so much. So next we're going to hear from Angie Yang. Hey, Angie. So now John's behind the camera and Angie's on the other side. So Angie, can you tell us a little bit about Bien Hecho Academy and how that side of the business got started and what skills students can learn in the class?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Angie. Thanks for joining us. Bien Hecho Academy came about a little over 5 years ago, and John and his colleague Tim Does have been the main instructors since day one. And we offer classes such as Intro to Woodworking, Intermediate Woodworking, and workshops consisting of walnut slab workshops, cutting board, hand tools, and we also offer team building workshops as well. That said, the Intro to Woodworking is one of our most popular woodworking classes that we offer, and students come to learn the basic skills of woodworking. And in that class, students walk out with a cutting board and a side table. And to make those pieces, some of the skills that they, learn from the instructors are dressing lumber, different types and techniques for joinery, and how to utilize them. So I can quickly show you a sample of some of the pieces.
That would be great. That would be great. I know that the cutting board workshop, for example, has been really successful.
Yeah.
Is what we're seeing here.
So this is a cutting board made by a student of ours. And this is a sample of a side table that still needs to be completed, but has been made by one of our students as well.
And
Yeah.
Angie, what would the length of a workshop look like? And I know that you also have workshop series as well.
Yep. So for Intro to Woodworking, it's a 6-week course. Currently, we're hoping and planning to resume classes very soon. And usually it's either Monday, Tuesday, or Thursdays from 7 to 10 p.m. And yeah, 3 hours for 6 weeks. And students walk out with a cutting board and a side table and knowledge of how to make these pieces.
And typically, so depending on skill level, people can come in with, someone like me with very little woodworking experience and maybe come away with something like a cutting board. But then you also have opportunities for people to kind of scale up over time in different levels and different skill sets. Is that right?
Sure. So our intermediate workshop, that's actually, that came about so that a lot of these students who finished our Intro to Woodworking, they have further and continuous interest in woodworking. So we offer this intermediate class where students are, they come to our shop and they share some designs of what, pieces that they want to make. And John usually guides them through the design process of how to execute a piece that they want to achieve in making that during that class period. And usually if the piece is kind of a bigger project, they wait till the next run of intermediate workshop and they continue, or students will continue to sign up for intermediate and continue to work on other pieces that they've been wanting to make.
Oh, and it's great that you're providing that support. And then there's a lot of kind of hand tools that they may not have at home, and machines they may not even realize that they need in order to complete a project. I'd like to share a few photos that we have from the Academy with students, and so that people can get a feel and a look. So here we have some students with tables. Here we can see.
Yep. So that's our Walnut slab class that we had offered not too long ago, but instead of having it just walnut, at that time, John had other different slabs available. So we gave students the flexibility to choose which slab that they wanted to make their bench or table.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to show another photo here, which is kind of fun. And I think this is it seems like a cutting board or team building class.
So that was a team building class for a company. They brought their new hires in so that they can work together and get to know each other, learning how to make a cutting board in here. And they all had such a great time.
And so how long would the cutting board class typically be?
So usually for something like that, we'll go ahead and kind of dress the lumber ahead of time, but John will provide an intro as to how, the wood has been dressed prior to the students arriving. And usually then we'll let them cross cut the wood and, do the other techniques, work on other techniques to get a cutting board going.
And we have a final picture that I'm going to share here, Angie. And this one, these are students hard at work. And if you could just kind of share with us what it is that they're working on here.
That one, in that particular photo, they were working on legs for their side table, right?
Mm-hmm. So mortise and tenon.
The mortise and tenon, yeah, which is a skill set that they take from the class. It's a joiner technique.
Well, thank you so much, Angie, for joining us. And if people want to sign up for the Bien Hecho Academy, or they want to learn about your classes when you relaunch them, how can they find out about them?
They can either DM us on Instagram at Bien Hecho Academy, or they can send us an email at info@bienhecho.com, and we'll be quick to answer them, respond to everything.
And one of the things we were talking about with one another was the fact that when you're woodworking, most of the time you're wearing a mask anyway for safety. And so in COVID, in a way, you would already be wearing a mask in a woodworking shop.
Yeah, so for all of our classes, we supply all of our students with goggles and masks. So this was pre-COVID times. So yeah, I mean, safety always first in a wood shop.
Mm-hmm. So, we have a question from our audience, and I don't know whether you, Angie, or John might want to answer this, but we have a question from the audience. What are some tools you would recommend for getting started with woodworking?
You can flip it, you can answer it.
Hi. Good question. I would probably start with hand tools. A nice Japanese pull saw, a hand plane, a card scraper, chisel, mallet, and yeah, I think that's a great place to start if you're, a typical kind of New Yorker. I don't know where people are chiming in from, but it's a little difficult in your apartment to buy a table saw, for example. This tool here, this is a safety table saw that we use for the academy, and I get to use it during the day for a little bit for my business. But that's a great thing to have. Obviously, like a table saw would be the ideal thing to start with because you can do so much with it. But I see, probably wouldn't make your neighbors too happy. It's true, but. Yeah, hand tools is a great way to start because then you can actually kind of get the basics and learn how wood works, so to speak. And then, to make the jump to a table saw or some of the dressing tools that Angie was talking about. We have the joiner that the students learn how to use. Over there is the planer, the other yellow one. To use those things is really fun, but the principles, like hand planing a board, is very similar to what those machines do. So you get a lot of the sort of principles down if you start with hand tools.
And speaking of getting started, I mean, John, when did you start woodworking? Were you a kid when you started when you first became interested in woodworking?
Yeah, I did. As a kid, I did do some little projects here and there. You know, I think I was a little more into that kind of thing than a lot of kids are. And what ended up happening was to make money for college during summers, I worked for a contractor and I was a trim carpenter. So doing casings and crown moldings and baseboards and things like that, installing millwork, those kinds of things. So I did that as a teenager, did that quite a bit in my early 20s, and it just kind of went from there. Worked for some people, had a contracting company actually, but just really enjoyed the woodworking aspect. So kind of shifted focus, and I didn't actually go to school for it. A lot of people go to, you know, RISD or Pratt or the like, but I don't hold a degree in it. So I just sort of taught myself and worked for some really good people and grew it from there.
Well, you guys are a great team, and I should mention that you're also a married couple, much like Andrew and me.
Right.
So we're so grateful to have you both with us today, and to share your space and take the time. And we hope that the classes are up and running soon. And is there anything else you'd like to share before we sign off?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And
Yeah,
everybody, stay positive. We're going to get through this.
we are going to get through this together. And I have to say that seeing your work at the Brooklyn Navy Yard and knowing where the wood came from and the craftsmanship and artistic vision that you have for the work, and then also just knowing many people who have taken classes with Bien Hecho Academy and have just really gotten into woodworking and have enjoyed it. It's just such a joy to share that with folks today, even if it's virtually, and hopefully it'll be in person sometime soon. So everybody check out Bien Hecho and Bien Hecho Academy, and thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care.
Take care.
Oh, and I'd also like to mention for those who are watching, if anyone wants to join us for happy hour, Turnstile Tours is having a happy hour today, virtually at 5 p.m. Andrew just dropped it into the chat, and we're going to be talking about the future of the waterfront, and specifically the Brooklyn waterfront. So we hope that folks can join us. But yeah, so that's about it. Thanks so much, guys.
Great, thank you. That was fun.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.